Welcome to this roadmap session for the content pillar at Naviga. Our product owner, Christopher Passanen, will start to talk about the content creation tools.
Divided this into three parts. What we have recently released, like just a really quick overview, not everything, but a little bit of it. What we have upcoming close in future, and then some possible initiatives. So these are the three parts of writer and dashboard that I will talk about and show you as much as possible. And when I say recently released, of course, that means that it's possible in some parts to upgrade to. Some might just be a plugin that doesn't require any bigger upgrades, but that's something we can also, of course, discuss at the end if needed. Otherwise, I'm sure that the different project managers and your key account managers, they know about. So that shouldn't be any surprises for them either. So actually, I'm going to just flip over as the first thing to the writer, because as I think everyone knows, we have released the writer in a writer version 6. I wonder if it's 6.2 is the latest one we have today. I'm actually using today a development version. It's not quite what you might get if you take this today, but it's close enough, because I also want to touch on one or two details that is something that we have up and coming as well. But really the biggest part is the redesign of the writer and the way it looks and feels. We've seen this, and I hope you have already seen these parts. But I wanted to just reflect on these things, just take a minute or two, because there are some things that you might not, of course, have in production or soon in production, and I just wanted to break those things up. So the biggest thing is, of course, that the entire writing UI has been redesigned to be more clear, to make it more easily to understand what you're writing and doing in the article area. We've also done a new bottom bar. I don't know if you've seen this. We've moved some parts of one of the information plugins from the top to be always visible. We got a lot of user feedback that I want to know how long my story is, and I don't want to need to click somewhere.
So Christopher, can you zoom in on your screen, like, control drag or something?
Maybe I can change my, not that one, screen resolution if it's too big, small for you guys.
I'm not that old, but I have glasses on.
Yes, and I just fetched my screen to home, so I'm not that used to how big or small things are. Okay. Is this big enough, or do you want me to
much better. Smaller? Much better.
Yeah, Thank you for that feedback. That's great.
I see this session is recorded. Is it made available for us after the 1.5 hours?
This is actually the first time I'm recording, so yes, I hope so, if I'm successful in this recording.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the idea is really to make some of the user information or the content information available all the time. And if you only have one language, this is really configurable what you want to see down here, if you want a language selector or not. But that was one of the things that we heard. To some extent, that might be for print, and some extent that might even be for digital. So we thought that it's always there. And the bottom menu is something that only Naviga can actually touch on. It's not a new plugin area. If you want the plugin area, you still have to use the ones available to you today. One of the things that I can show in this environment that is coming quite soon, and this is one of those developer pranks that they do when they set something up the first time, and that's something we call configurable textiles. And this is, of course, funny for them, because they thought that let's make it in Comic Sans in a lot of different colors. But it's really made to be, more configuration when it comes to textiles, instead of having only fixed ones or needed to develop a plugin to be able to set more styles. Of course, this comes with the writer might not look the same anymore. but we felt like, we got that kind of questions every now and then, that we need a new textile and someone had to develop that. Just quickly, extended PDF search is something we've added to actually search within the PDF. Personal templates, maybe these generic properties which can help you on your presentation layer. We have more and more configurable workflow statuses, who is allowed to publish, for example, these kind of lists. We have a small special characters UI that I can use if I want to find a special A character. I can find that and insert that. And last but not least, we also made a small change to the image gallery just recently, actually, so that I can take a photo and drag it to anywhere already in this view. So I can say I want that photo there, and it will be inserted in the correct place. So these are some of the things that I just want to, a little bit of a recap of the writer. We're still, adding upon small things, and we'll come to the more bigger initiatives in a little while. So same writer in dashboard. What I also wanted to show you guys is the Naviga photos that now have been released and should be possible to configure in your environments as well. I take a couple of photos, I drag and drop them. I get a warning that one of the photos already exists. And I can set the same metadata for many photos or go in through one photo at a time. If I want to add my name to all of these photos, I can do so. And I can share with the entire organization and set some kind of text for all of these, like that. So when these photos are uploaded, they are, of course, available to search for in the writer. They are available in different places. And this really takes me to the last part I wanted to show you guys, and that's Newsroom Planner. And that's the part with my assignments, especially. I think most of you have seen in the Newsroom Planner the Trello-like planning part of it. And now when we got to release, actually that one has been out for some time. And now we released Newsroom Planner 2.0, which contains the possibility to actually have the writer integrated within the planning. So someone has made a plan for me. They thought that I should do a story. And actually, they also created a plan for Tim to take photos and upload those. So in this case, I have a story that I can use those photos that Tim, in this case, already have uploaded within the same plan, but his assignment. Well, that was harder to get than usually. So I can also drag and drop several photos, and it will create an image gallery from those pictures like that. Otherwise, the writer in here works the same way. And the idea really is that, this is the view for both journalists and photographers. So if I go ahead one day, I also have a photo assignment for me, which means that I can upload photos in this view instead. So I don't have to use the Naviga Photos, the standalone application. I can work within my task list and do the same things I just did before, and then hit upload. And then those photos will be uploaded to this assignment. So if there's an article in this assignment, the reporter will have those available. It's also possible, if I did upload them in another way, I can also link those photos or any photos afterwards as well. So I can say I want to link these photos, and they will actually be linked very quickly. So,
a question, Christopher.
Sorry?
I have a question, Christopher, regarding the metadata. If there
Yes.
already is metadata,
Yes.
maybe from Photoshop, does it follow?
Yes.
Great.
So we fetch IPTC, and I think it's EXIF at the moment. And we have, as I do this quite quickly, so we don't get into all the weeds. But we have created a standard setup. But if you say that, oh, but we also want something else here, we have already prepared a lot of different IPTC fields. So it's really just adding a field and asking that field to fetch the data from a specific field in IPTC, and it will just work out of the box.
And Christopher, is that a per customer configuration doing so?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually per unit as the rest of the dashboard. So but you set that up yourself, what different fields you want. We started with this to have it, have something that works out of the box. So if I X, Y, Z, if I write something here, so actually whatever field you would fetch in or add to your configuration, it will also be automatically free text searchable. So you don't need to do any backend configuration to get whatever field you add to have free text search on that.
A question, one more question. You just mentioned the units. We are doing this right now, setting up units for the login, and it's a lot of units when you're a media house. And you have to do the same over and over again, and it looks like you have to do it again here. Any thoughts about that? That you should do it in bulk, kind of?
So what we have in stage today, and the plan was to have that upgraded in production this Monday, but due to the coronavirus, we had some customers reaching out to say, as you guys know, everyone is working from home and it's a bit chaotic. So we postponed that upgrade. But what we have there is that when you set up everything from scratch, you can set up one unit and then just duplicate everything out. But adding one piece, yes, that's still something you need to do per unit. So when you want this in each unit, as it is still today and in the near-term future, you need to install these per unit. We do have a little bit longer-term plans to add some kind of possibility to add that to your organization and then populate that down. But we don't really know how to do that because a lot of these things are still configured per unit. Let's say publication planner where you have different filters. So we don't really know how to solve that yet, but we do know that it's something we want to do and make it easier for you guys to set these things up.
Christopher, one follow-up question here. If I have, like Peter is talking about, one configuration for Naviga Photos for one unit,
yes.
Is it easy for me just to duplicate that to more units?
Yes.
Can I use the new snapshot function for that?
No, you can't, because a snapshot takes everything. So the snapshot or backup functionality is really to set up from scratch. But if you do these if you do a lot of configurations, if you do that, you can export a single plugin in configuration and import that, and it will, have all the settings you had earlier.
Christopher, are you going to talk more about the new snapshot and standard configuration later on today?
Yes, I thought I'll talk about that when we come to the actual to roadmap part of this.
Okay, good.
Yes. So any questions or thoughts on just these three pieces? Because these were the things that we have released, we have worked a lot on to get out and available. Or do I jump on to the next part?
It looks really nice.
All right, I'll actually jump on to the next part and little bit about our roadmap. So the roadmap, as we see it today, it's let's see if I can do it like. I'm just going to take it. I wanted to keep this because I want to be able to jump a little bit back and forth with sketches and so on. So when we look at this, so what Peter just said, this kind of snapshot or backup functionality is something we have in stage today, and something we will get in production within the next couple of weeks when we upgrade to dashboard 3.0. And the major functionality with the backup or snapshot, depending on when in time we're talking, we just decided to rename that to backup, and that's you can take a backup of a functional unit setup. If something breaks, you can just take the entire backup and then replace that. But you can also really quickly, if you have many units and you're setting those up from scratch, the idea is to create one good one, back that one up, and import that on all the other units to really get a quick setup from the start. So that's basically what Dashboard 3 is about. And you can also have a local configuration, so you can test your configuration out locally before pushing that out to many users, or decide not to push it out to any users. But that's also something that is really, really near time. It's been done, and as I said, we just had to postpone that public release to every dashboard we have due to the world situation. We're also working really hard, actually, on Dashboard 4. So, we try to have our look ahead all the time. So Dashboard 3 had some functionality. Dashboard 4, again, the really big thing is that we will have a totally redesigned dashboard. You might have seen already in some screenshots that the dashboard does not quite look the same. This part is something that we are trying to get out before the summer if things go well. It should not break anything. Everything you have today should work as it is, but you will get a new look and feel, and there will also be, some changes in real how you set up dashboard and how you can do this. You get a little bit more user information straight away. When you change profiles like this, it's possible to change the order of all of the workspaces you have here. You decide what roles can have a specific workspace. So if you are not, let's say, admin, you can't see the workspace with concept admin and maybe some other application. But other than that, the Dashboard 4 and the redesign part, it's really everything around all the applications we have. So it doesn't really change the applications themselves, but it changes the look and feel and this user interface. And some of these things are what we are still working on. So this might look familiar to some of you. We are also working on an Audit Trail application. That's something that we actually thought we would start already last year, but we also knew that it will require Open Content 3.0, and sometimes things happen and it didn't really go as we first thought, so we kind of paused that, and now we have come about halfway development-wise with Audit Trail plugin. And we just quit one sprint today, and the next sprint goal is really to see how far we can get, if we can get it at least to code freeze level, and see what about testing and does everything work as expected as a whole. But this is really about fetching content and see who did something at what time, and even seeing deleted objects and see who deleted that object. You won't see each content item separated by itself, but you will be able to see who did something to that document, and you will see all the versions that have been stored in open content, at least line by line, and see who and when changes were made.
So this is
something
Trail connected. So this is Audit Trail connected to content, and when we say content, we mean articles.
No.
In this case, we mean all content. We mean every content object that we know about.
Yes.
That's stored in open content. So that would be a plan, an assignment, a photo, concepts, and so on.
Yeah, a question there. I have spent some hours these days cleaning up our metadata. So then you can actually track if someone has created someone a doublet or
Yes.
yeah. So if you
So
have
you're gonna be
created
able
two
to say-
persons of that's actually the same, you can track why did you do that.
Yeah, you will be. Why? Maybe not. But you could search for the concept Lars Larsson, and you might see two, and you will see who created both of them, and when. You won't, you won't see why they created it. You might. I don't think you will see where they created it. But you will
That's my question for them.
Exactly,
Yeah,
Peter.
exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Why?
Why did you do that?
And important to understand is that the Audit Trail has its own backend, so it stores information about what is happening with different objects, even a delete, as Christopher mentioned. So even if that content item does not longer exist in your content repository, we still have all information available for that content item.
Yes. So deleted objects we have to look for specifically. So this is just a UI sketch. There will be a deleted, search for deleted only button or something like that. And then you will get a list of everything that has been deleted. And then you can search for those in the same manner. On a related topic, it's really about articles, because something that we have developed for Writer that is waiting for Open Content 3, it's the same but within the Writer. So the idea is really to be able to open a story. If it has been saved multiple times, I can click on a Writer icon that says, take me back to history mode, and I will be able to see different changes to text content. I can see who has changed it. I can see if it changed status. And by clicking on these, I can also, if I want to, restore to the version that I have active. So this will be a little bit more of a detailed view. If you're familiar to Google Docs, it's very similar. And so you can really go back or just check what someone else did. You might have sent that for approval as a journalist, and the news editor have changed some things, and you want to see, oh, okay, now I understand why they changed it like this. So that's something that we also have in store for the Writer as soon as we have an Open Content 3.0 out. Another application we have worked with, and we are, I think it's in stage today. It's available for news or NCS content and Newspilot 5, and it's a print overview application, which is really a read-only view into your print production. So you can select a product and a date, and then see how are our pages doing. Are all pages sent at the time you expected? But it's also important to understand that it's just a view, but it's really meant for you. You will need to log into your print system, but then you can be in the dashboard without actually having a client in front of you, like NCS Content or Newspilot 5, and then see those pages in this application. I was about to say in real time, but it's in real time as long as you press the button to update.
Real time on click.
Yes.
So you don't have any option of having that running with automatic update, like on a big screen?
No, not at the moment. And that was that's actually how the NCS Content API works. You need to fetch that data separately.
And it is displaying JPEGs, right?
Sorry?
It's displaying JPEGs.
Yes. So let's see if I'm lucky enough to show all profiles. I'm not sure if I am, but who knows?
Which means that updating would probably go pretty fast since it's just JPEGs.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then you can view pages in full screen.
Oh, nice.
To see how a page actually looks, and then of course go from different dates and etc. We also have a single page view and a spread view, a little bit depending on what system you're working on. So even though, since we've done this as a totally separate part, it's not strongly connected to NCS Content or Newspilot, but since both systems have their own functionality, the APIs differ a little bit. We have an agent in the background talking to each system. So in this case, it's the Newspilot agent. It might have some features that the NCS Content API or agent does not have, so which makes sense because there are two different systems. Yeah, that's pretty much what we have right now when it comes to the dashboard. The dashboard 4 I showed you a little bit about. You've seen Naviga photos. We are talking about the possibility to download photos. We are looking into the possibility of having some kind of simple image editing on upload. So when you upload a photo, we want to have the possibility to set a hard crop, maybe change the size to say, oh, I want this image to be 2,500 pixels wide. Maybe make it black and white or some color management, or but very simple, at least to start with, and take it from there. We're also talking about really redesigning one dashboard plugin at a time. You've seen the the new plugins we have. They look, they already have the new look and feel, and if you open up an older application like Publication Planner, it's an old design to the most part. So the idea is really to take some time and go through all the user interfaces we have that the user sees and create that into one experience. Get them on par with each other. One of the applications we are looking into starting development is also a new Newswire plugin, which might look like this. This is an early concept. So the idea is really to have an application that actually talks to our sister company, which is this content as a service part. And they have a really big backend with a lot of different news feeds, which you could hook into. And the idea is to have those news feeds available in the dashboard. So you can have a real-time feed of what's going on and then import those stories to your open content. This is something that we're creating an MVP as quickly as possible to be able to get even more feedback. We've looked a little bit on other, what would you say, wire service applications and tried to make this into the new design, a little bit different backend to make it as flexible as possible for really many news sources, etc. But the idea is really to be able to have multiple workspaces within the same wire feed, have these set up either by an administrator or by each person, and so you can really be a news junkie within the dashboard.
Nice. Any feedback on that? It's quite small on the screen, but still.
Yeah, and Newsroom Planner, we're also, it's a quite new application. We get user feedback from that, both from demoing and customers starting to take that into production. So we are really trying to listen to those the biggest needs to make some tweaks, some improvements to make the workflow even easier, even better, so you can make the most out of your planning. But one of the things that we are looking into is to have a top bar menu to be able to create a new assignment from anywhere, in this case, like from here. So I can say, I want to create a new article that also has an assignment and a plan in a very similar way that I can do for myself in the My Assignments view, where I create a new article, but I will also get automatically a planning card, an assignment created for me. And in this case, this is really for me. So I will only set a name and save this one like this, and it will be created for me. But the idea is to create a similar process for news editors, for example, if they realize, oh, I remember now Peter should do this thing tomorrow, and I don't want to go to the Newsroom Planner app and look for tomorrow, but I can just click here, create a new one, and you know, set at least the minimum metadata that I can, and be happy with that and continue with what I did.
That's very good, I say. We are searching and looking for easier way to initiate articles and tasks.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Great. And we also have, you know, in this view, we will start developing a small button here to create a photo assignment here. If I'm in this view like this, and I realized, it didn't have any photos. Let's say it like this. And I realized that I need photos from a photographer, or I want to upload photos by myself to a task. Then I get a button here to say create photo assignment, and I can give that to me or to someone else. So the reporter, the journalist, doesn't have to leave this space to be able to make that kind of job as well. So these are, you know, small tweaks that we will do in quite near future when it comes to Newsroom Planner, to make it as easy as possible. And another thing we're also doing is to make this more configurable. Today it's been quite hard-coded, but really making the different selections, the different boxes that or fields that you see, so you can do it in the way that you want to. We are also, at the same time as we're looking at the dashboard 4 core, we're also redesigning the login flow to make it look more like the new dashboard, to make it look more like the new redesign of the writer and so on. So this is also something that you will see at the same time as we get the dashboard 4 out. The idea is really to, you know, if you only have a few units, make it easier for you to just click and get on with it. If you have a lot of units, you will see actually a filter possibility. Yeah, so we're trying to just get the look and feel more consistent all through, also when logging in. But unfortunately, or I don't know if it's unfortunate for you, but your login flow will still be the same. So if you have Microsoft or Google, it will still look like the actual login part will be the same as before. That's not anything that we can take over. We're also looking at you know, when it comes to the, so I've created a small common piece here in the middle, because some of these things are actually both writer and dashboard. The login flow is for both. We're also looking at something that we've been, you know, wanting to do for a long time, and that's this kind of small, medium, large planning. I know some customers have already done that. I think one is on the call right now as well. So what we are doing is to make, you know, when you plan for something, that you already in Newsroom Planner can set the expected size of an article. And then when you open up that story, you will see what the expectation was and where you're going within that frame that you were given. And the rules will, of course, be business rules for each customer. If a medium story has to have a photo, a fact box, or 3,000 characters, or whatever you want to do with that. But that's something that we're hoping to do a little bit later. Hopefully we can start it before the summer, but we're not quite sure with that yet. But I think it looks a little bit similar to what, for example, Gota Media has done, even though the UI is not exactly the same, of course, but the idea, I think, is quite the same.
What can I do to make it happen sooner. Yeah.
Send me some painkillers. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, I mean, this is something, it's really a joint venture for both the writer team and the dashboard team, and we need to make those things align. And sometimes that means that we need to push that a little bit further in time. But as you can see here, I mean, I'm really hoping that this is something we will at least start before the summer. Maybe even have, in some kind of proof of concept version before the summer. But the newsroom planner part is really simple. That's not the big part. It's the writer part, to get all of those pieces together and really look at the business needs when it comes to a little bit of analytics and what you need in the data format and what was planned and what maybe was the real outcome and such. But I think that will, I'm sure that will help when you start planning a newsroom planner, to be able to plan a little bit more on a detailed level to help the reporter set the expectation right. And actually, in the same picture, I basically, this multiple writer templates is also something that we've heard that it's needed. It hasn't really been like the most important feature we can have. But the same thing is here, to be able to have multiple templates, so you can set up different sports templates, a stock template, a review template, and so on. So you set those up in a similar way as you set up the writer template today, and then they would be available in Newsroom Planner as a first step. So when you create a story, you can say, oh yeah, also this should actually be the sports template because it's about football. So it will have all the necessary empty text fields or even text ready within the story. So we want to bundle this as well to get even more flexible or more steering from the plan to the journalist.
Are those two treated as separate development, or are they connecting?
I mean, I want them to be released at the same time. I think that this is something else than this technically.
Yeah.
The writer today, it already supports multiple templates, I would say, because you can have one template per unit already. That's possible, but we do need some tweaking to decide what's the template. If you don't choose a template today, it would just choose the first one in open content that comes up in some kind of order. And we want to be able to say, this is the template you should use if you have not defined this one.
If I am able to do some prioritizing here, I would say that the article size is more prior than the template.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's just for me.
Yeah. Anyone that disagrees or agrees?
You can also come back with feedback after this call. I mean, that's totally fine. When these things have settled a little bit, what you've seen today and heard, but I think that when you start doing those things, one of them might take a little bit more time, or one of them takes a little bit less time. And sometimes it makes more sense to do them all at once, and sometimes it's a good thing to just release one thing at a time. And I think the full picture will probably decide at the end how we do it. But I totally agree. This one, the small, medium, large, if we do them as separate tasks, I do think that's the first one we should do as well.
Yeah, I'll say that when talking about how you set up your article in the writer, we are kind of have an open mind regarding that, and our web pages just shows how it's done in the writer. So we don't use templates in that manner on for our webs, and how we do it in print is a separate question actually.
Yeah. But we've heard like from, you know, really big organizations with like 600, 2,000 people that they do have so different way of writing. They have such, you know, depending on the section, you might always write and fill in a lot of different things. So it kind of makes sense to make some standard metadata always set, and maybe some text in the end always set and stuff like that. But I also do know that that's, you know, that it's not a need everyone has. It's a need that is kind of nice to have for many, but yeah. All right, we can come back to this if you want to later. I also wanted to go in a little bit to the writer, because, you know, once again, what we did a lot of different development efforts last fall, and one feedback we got was also, okay, we want to upgrade to this. It seems to take some time, and we have really put in some architecture effort into rethinking how the writer is deployed, and this is what we're working on right now. And it's going really well. So the idea is to, at one point in time, really get to the part where the writer is basically one setup for all our customers. And when I say one setup, it's the architecture. Today, each customer basically has their own writer installation, and they have that one version. In the future, the idea is really to be able to divide that. So you could basically say, let's say it's writer 7 that has this functionality, and you're running writer 7, and then we add some quick fixes or some minor improvements and call it 7.1. You could just jump on that one. You could test it. You can have a small group testing that 7.1, and when you say it's good for everyone, then you can just jump on that. And it doesn't require any installations, any upgrades from our part, but when it's there, it's there. So, and that's kind of the first step of this, what we internally call a writer's house project, to really get that one setup for all our customers. Of course, that will be an upgrade by itself and a move to that, but we're going to work hard to get that as smooth as possible. And the next part of that, which you can see on the right side here, it's to also, per customer, of course, being able to have your configuration in a different way than you have it today, because today the writer is really one config for one writer. And that, I mean, you can't have that in the future. The idea is really to have one config per, let's say, unit. Of course, that will be more configuration, but if a customer wants to have that, that will be possible in the future as well. That might mean that when you log into unit A, you will have a set of plugins, and when you log into unit B, you might have less or more plugins available to you. Do you want to add something, Peter, if you're here on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes. As you know, the dashboard is already running exactly in that way. And we have really started to have a good process when upgrading the dashboard and dashboard applications, where you get access to a pre-release version of the dashboard some weeks before the actual release, so that you can test the next coming version in your production environment. And the problem we have today is really to upgrade customer installations, because there is a lot of man hours needed and hands needed to upgrade to get access to new features that Christopher is showing here. So the idea is to move from that situation to a shared environment, a shared architecture, where you get access to your new writer features as soon as they are available. And at the same time, allowing you to run multiple versions. You can still continue with the existing version we have and say, wow, I have a set of plugins that I need to fix before upgrading. So I'm fine with the existing version for a time going forward. And it will also enable us to make sure that we have all processes in place for disaster and recovery. We can have we know that we are securing every setup, where we have fewer deployments to monitor and patch, etc. over time. So it really gives you a set of advantages. And that work is really going quite well. So we are, in the middle of that development. So we have parts of the writer setup today running in that more shared SaaS environment. So I'm really happy with that.
Yeah. Great. And one more thing that I just thought, a small writer thing that has been up for discussion a couple of times earlier. It hasn't been really that clear for us what to do and how to do it. And today we have started to looking into something that calls a focal point soft crop. It's more of the soft crop today. It's more of a center on the photo soft crop. And if you need to change that, you need to go into the different parts of that writer. I can just show you that really quickly. I want to soft crop this photo. This means that all the versions that I have, I need to go through and look, okay, I want that actually to be centered on this one. And this one is the full photo, it seems like, pretty much. And that one I need to center like this instead. But going from this instead, the idea is to make it that you can have a focal point. So you can have this by default on, of course. And if you realize that this kid is the most important kid because he's looking over here, if I then would click here, all of the crops that needed to change will automatically change to get this part within the photo. So if you have a lot of soft crops, that will help you a lot. And if you only have a few, that will still help you a little bit with each image, because the only thing you need to do is to fetch that one spot that will help you get everything in your soft crops. And that's pretty much what I at least had in mind for now. It's quite a lot of different dashboard initiatives, common initiatives, and then some of the things for the writer to really help you get the latest versions out as smoothly, as quickly as possible. In the bottom here, you also see two boxes. They are dashed because they're a little bit like, we don't really know how to do them yet. It's about external collaboration, how to work with freelancers, for example. Today you can have a freelancer in your AD and have them log in with a little bit of limited access or a little bit of limited publication rights, for example. Is that enough, or do we need to do something more? And the other part is, this kind of collaboration mode. We know that it's been on the long-term roadmap for quite some time. It's also really difficult to do. We've seen Microsoft is one of the biggest companies in the world, and their collaboration mode is not really that good. We're losing stuff, and it's not real time and stuff like that, and we want it to be really good. And that means it also will take a lot of time. So our thought and our idea is to look into, at least do a proof of concept, to look into the possibility to maybe make the headline collaborative, metadata collaborative, text, everything in the text area could be locked down to one user, and a different user writes the teaser, and the third person is the one that makes sure the metadata is correct, for example. But this is something that,
some kind of limited collaboration, not as we know it like in Google Docs, but a step in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts, or we could also take questions in the end if you didn't come up with anything right now. Then I will stop my screen share, and thank you so far.
Super nice, Christopher. Thanks.
Okay, is it me then?
Yeah, I think it's time for you, Olof. All right, I'll start sharing my screen. Just find the right buttons. Let me know if you see something. Yeah. All right. So I'll start reverse from what Christopher did. I'll start with a simple roadmap that we have. It's showing the roadmap for Elastic Layouts and Newspilot. I'm going to focus on Elastic Layouts on this presentation. We're basically now just in the step of releasing the first version of Elastic Layouts. We're somewhere here. Do you see my pointer?
Yes.
Right. So we're really in the decision of what to include in the first version. Maybe we will call it a beta version for the first one, because the next thing to do is to enhance the metric and telemetry reporting that we do. We do it already, but locally on the user machine, and also to do an integration with Naviga ID. The feeling I have now is that we're not going to include that in the first beta version. So, but that's where we are now. Very short about Newspilot. We're actually very close to releasing the first version of Newspilot 5. It's probably going to be a beta version of that next week. That's my feeling right now. We've done some extensive testing and finding less and less bugs. So that's really comforting, I think. So. And also with Newspilot, it's Naviga ID integration that we're doing next. So actually, I want to move to Elastic Layouts and make a short presentation and a demo of that. So we'll start here. And please interrupt me if you have any questions. The background. All of you know that historically the workflow has typically been that you have assigning a print article to a reporter, and the reporter has been responsible for entering text and adding content to that, and also make it fit to the article template that he has been assigned to. So this is the history as we know it. We have some disadvantages with that, as you know as well. The heaviest one is probably that the reporter will be a print focus. Will have a print focus in everything that they do, and in the work of having people think more digital content, that's a disadvantage. So to make this happen, make reporters more digital focused, we had to do something. So we had a workshop along with Gota Media, trying to discuss what could be the first step of print automation, and we started focusing on what we could do with exactly this situation. So the idea was that we found was to make article templates on the print side more flexible. Make the template adjust to the content instead of having the reporter to adjust the content to the template. And we tried to focus, and Gota Media helped us finding what are the most common manual steps that a page editor do on a page, and basically on every article on every page. And these are actually the steps that we identified. Decision of whether to use a fact box or not, maybe use a second image or not. Can we change the size of the image? Use a quotation or not, or change the size of it? Different kinds of creating space in the article to let the body text adjust to the template, the article area, so to say. Doing this, we came up with the idea of Elastic Layouts. And this is very briefly of how it works. You create article templates in Indesign, just as you would do normally. So
that's quite an important thing to know, that elastic layouts is a add-on to whatever you do, whether you're using Newspilot or NCS content. So you use your normal tools to create a template, and then you add rules to that template, article template. These rules are stored in are settings that are stored to the elastic layout backend. Then you use your, store your article templates in a InDesign library or in your CMS, for example, Newspilot or NCS content. Then you move on to the article flow, so to say. The article is placed in InDesign in the normal manner, just as you do today. But the new thing here is that the Elastic Layout plugin will hook on right after the article has been placed on the page, and then adjust the content to fit the actual article area. All this is done in InDesign. So after this has been done, you can open InDesign, the page in InDesign, to make it, if you need to do some final adjustment. This actually gives, when we did this, we realized that an article template gets a span of characters or size that will, that it can handle, from a minimum size, a minimum amount of body text, up to a certain amount that is the maximum size. So this means that if we can make article templates using these kind of sizes, and this really aligns with what Christopher talked about earlier in the writer, with the article sizes. So this will mean that you will have a lot less article templates, since they're very flexible. And also you will need only, instead of having 4 of 5 versions, one with 2 images, a fact box, and a quote, and and so on, you will have one that will automatically adjust the layout to the content. So let's move on to InDesign and make a short demo, unless you don't have any questions right now. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. It was very quiet, so just
but it
wondering.
was so really good presentation, Olof. So yeah, that's it.
All right. So we have a spread in InDesign. In this case, I have Newspilot running behind this. So the articles is coming from Newspilot, but we're not going to focus on that at the moment. I'll get back to it later when I'm going to adjust one of the articles. So I just want to place an article. This one is I can show it in Newspilot. So this is the article, quite a long one with 3 images, a fact box, and also a quote. I'm just going to place it on the page. I'm doing this manually in InDesign now to make it visual for you what's actually happening. So keep your eyes on the body text here and the quote that is going to appear here. There you have it. You see the article is under set, and it's automatically adjusted to make the quote box bigger and make the body text copy fit in the body text frame. So I'll make the second one, which is on the right hand page. Placing it. Same with that. It's underset, meaning that it's too short, and it's going to expand the quote in this case. And then we have a spread complete to send to print. I'm going to remove all this now and focus on the left-hand page. I use 3 other articles to show an example of how it could be done. I'll start with placing one of these ones. So this is a bottom article with 1 image, adjusted like that. We'll come back to this one later. We have a second one, which is a one column to the left. There it is, adjusted and ready. And there's a top article that I'm placing right now. So just by placing these three articles and using elastic layouts, they have been adjusted to the page and make it, look quite nice, I think. This could also, of course, be done by Indesign server. I could have, connected the articles to the page and send it to Indesign server, and it would have been creating the whole page just like I just did. But I think, for a demo, this is more visual. So I'm going to focus on this article in the bottom there now, and I'm going to open it or actually, let's place it once more. I'm going to remove it so you can see what happens the first time I place it. So you see that there's a large image and it's shrinking to 2 columns and the quote is growing to the full height and to adjust the text to fit. Let's assume now that the reporter that had done the text had written some more. I'm going to, for the simplicity, I just copy this paragraph, and duplicate it so it's a little longer now, the article. Saving it and placing it again. So now you can see that the quote doesn't take that much space anymore. It needed to adjust the height of this frame to make the text fit within this area. Let's do it some more. Add even more text like that. And place it once more. The quote is even smaller. Still a 2-column image. I'm going to stretch this a little bit. So more text to this. Placing it again. Now the text was too long to make it fit with a 2-column image. So it actually shrunk the image to be a 1 column. And then it needed to expand the height of the quote again to make the text fit. And also, if you look at this one, you could see that it has added an empty row between the last body text, the last body text paragraph, and the byline. All this is optional, so you can, decide to use this or not if you want to. I can keep on like this, adding some more text, placing it once more. And as you can see, we're now really, getting closer to the limit of the maximum amount of characters that this template can hold. But either way, it's adjusting it to fit with the page like this.
What's the minimum amount of text in this example and the maximum number of characters in this example?
I haven't counted, actually. I'm not sure.
I think that gives sort of an indicator of how flexible this actually
I think,
can be.
Peter from Gota, I know that you have been experimenting with this a lot, so perhaps you have some real metrics for that?
Sorry, I was in a Corona matter on Slack.
Okay.
Please repeat the question.
Yeah, we talked about amount of characters that the flexibility inside in Elastic template. Do you have an example of that? Of course, that differs between different designs and layouts, but just give us some example if you have.
Yeah, it was quite similar what Olof showed earlier. If you have a Medium article, it's I can't say the exact numbers right now, but it's somewhere. It's very similar to that. It's I think we have the medium is from 1,500 to 2,499 characters. So it's 999 characters flexibility in the medium. And of course, it's a little less in the smaller types and a little more in the larger ones. And that's that kind of flexibility is good enough to actually have this kind of elastic functionality. You don't have to add more, but I don't think that you should have less than that.
Right.
So, and we have also looked at what kind of articles, what text lengths, how many characters do we actually have? And it turns out that these new types, extra small, small, medium, and large, and extra large, are actually kind of on spot when talking about what different levels we are using, actually. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so we didn't have to adjust so much regarding what types of articles, what text sizes we are using. Yeah.
So Peter, when you're going to work with this, you actually have page templates that has article templates that are elastic. Is that your work method going forward?
We believe that. We actually should have done testing in production this week, but we have had to postpone that because of all the other things that are happening. But we are thinking that we will have a complete page templates with standard setups of articles. We are local newspapers, and many of the local news pages have 4 or 5 different versions that goes around all the time. So we will make page templates with that kind of assortment of articles to use. That's how we think about it.
Interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but sorry, Peter, go on.
Come on, Wolf.
I don't know if you noticed that the last step I did was to add even some more extra text here in this step. What's happening then is that, as you can see, before I do an update, the article is pretty much full with text now. So when doing this, it will actually, the next step is to remove the quote and make it fit in that way. So, when you start working with this and start looking and trying to, elaborate with your templates, you will find that it's quite necessary to have different kinds of let me go back to the original, like this. So in this case, we have 2 elastic objects, so to say. One is the image, and the other one is the quote. And the image is, since we want to adjust the size column-wise, the amount of text that we push or release when we do that is quite a lot. So it's not enough to have just this one, or it's going to be a little rough if you only have this kind of elastic object. So in this case, the quote is a very good tool to use, since it can, it will resize in very, very small steps, if you like.
I can have a comment around that. We have said that at Gota Media that we can't guarantee that there will always be an image, but we can guarantee there will always be a quote. And of course, the larger the template, the article template, the more likely it is that there is actually an image as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to show it all, but just showing one of these frames, this is the panel that controls the settings for the elastic layouts. So I can just select all these ones. These are the frames connected to this specific article template. So they are all frame by frame listed to the left here. So if I click on this one, for example, this is the quote frame. You can see it being highlighted on the page. So these are the settings that we use. In this case, I see this is in Swedish now. I'm sorry for that. It says change frame size, and then you can have some settings to decide what direction it should resize and with what steps and what the lower and upper limits. For this example, we're using points. If I switch to the image, you see that it will use columns instead, and the bottom left of the image is actually the point that is moving. So this is how it's being set up. Okay, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show you about this. If you don't have any more questions, I'll leave to, I think, Peter.
I actually do have a question to Peter Sigfridsson. You said that small articles will have quotes and larger templates will have images and quotes. Is that also fact boxes for larger articles, or how do you think about fact boxes? How have you treated them?
We will add fact boxes to articles from medium, large, and extra large. But I can't say that the reporter always will use them. But we will add them as a part of the article template so that we kind of make them aware of the possibility to use fact box in the article.
I can actually show you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Olof. I'll say
just show a quick example of how that could work. Yeah, I think it's let's see now. This top one that is called Long Range Plus. This one. So let's do it like this. Let's say that the reporter actually added some more text like this, but didn't have the fact box. I'm gonna push it just in here to save it. So this means that the template, the article template, actually have room for a quote, a fact box. But in this case, I didn't have an effect for it. So I'm just gonna save it and place this one again. So what it's doing now is that when it's placing the article, if there is any elastic objects that are empty, they are being removed and giving room for the text instead. So that's quite a nice thing.
So Olof, now you have been showing this in InDesign Client. Peter Sigfridsson.
Sorry, I lost it for a second.
Sorry, you've been using InDesign Client to show this.
Right.
So InDesign Server, you're able to use that as well?
Absolutely. Let's do you want to see it?
Yeah, if possible. But also a question to Peter Sigfridsson. Is your plan to use the client way or the server way, or have you given that some thought?
Right now it's the client, on the client side. But server, it's tempting. Yeah, to actually use this for complete pages like this.
Yeah, and actually you could take several pages as well and just send them to the
sure.
server, and you will get the selected pages back from InDesign Server, all laid out and complete.
Yeah, but as a start, client.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you need to perhaps change your text in a headline or do small adjustments, I think it's quite convenient just to have it opened in InDesign without opening it. You have it already opened. And if you find out that you have templates or pages that you are not adjusting at all, then just switch to use InDesign Server instead.
Yeah, that's a good go forward.
Yeah, so it's
way to do
exactly the same plugins running inside InDesign. So we have a server version as well as the desktop version.
So in this case, we have 3 articles actually using the same templates that I used just on the client page. Looks like I need to, let's see now. There we are. Using Whiteboard to attach articles to a page. And then I would just say create document using InDesign server. So the InDesign server will create the page and place all these 3 articles, and also use elastic layout to adjust it, just like exactly the way it happened on the page that I had before. So now this was creating a page with elastic layouts without opening it in InDesign.
Yeah, and now that the InDesign document exists on your file server, exactly as like you have created it manually.
So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
So Peter Sigfridsson, would you be willing to share or have a short demo at some point for this group when you're more in production with your templates?
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem. We can do that. I don't know when it will be. Actually, we haven't done that rescheduling of our test. We are trying to get Naviga login working, and that's the prioritization right now. To be prepared for a lot of people working from home. That's actually the cause of it. So we are focused on that now, and then we will add this. When there's time for it now.
Okay. Very much understandable. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure.
All right, thanks. I'll stop sharing my screen now, so leave it to the next one.
Okay, thanks. We have 12 minutes left, so I'm trying to do this quite fast. So I'm sharing my screen. So can you see it?
Yes.
Good. So we're going to talk about more backend stuff that we are working on or not. I have to move forward a little bit. So, backend services. I will start with Open Content. And Open Content, as you know, is the backend, the content repository in all our solutions today. It's powering the writer, it's the content storage for writer, it's the storage for documents created in different dashboard apps like User Planner or Naviga Photos or whatever. It's also used as well in the presentation part, powering websites and applications. So what we're doing with Open Content 3 is really not adding any features. Actually, we are removing some not so often used features to create a more high availability version of Open Content. And high availability means that everything is redundant. Every function is running in parallel. So if one part of the solution goes down, the machine crashes or Amazon is terminating the machine or whatever, it will still be up and running. So that is really to make it super reliable all the time. It will also make it possible to increase the performance. Make it more scalable. So if we have done a lot of tests, instead of running one instance of the search index machine, you can have as many as you want to. If you would like to double your safety or redundancy, you can have 2, or you can have 3, or 30, or 100. But the most important thing is to make it more fail-safe. And the status of Open Content 3 is that we have our first beta version up and running for test internally. So we're testing it together with our editorial tools as well as with our presentation layers. So we really hope to be able to create a release version of that pretty soon. We have some more test work to do. Just a tech drawing about the new architecture, and what you can see here is that every part in the Open Content setup now is able to scale and be run in parallel. So I'm not going, if you are super interested in tech details, you can Slack me separately. Moving on to some more stuff we are working on. You saw Naviga Photos, for example, and that application is using a new kind of API that we have been developing for some time, and it's our new content creation APIs. And that the reason for doing that is to simplify for applications like our own applications, or for you as a customer to communicate with the content itself, to ingest content or edit content. So we're moving our own tools like dashboard apps and the writer to use CCA instead of communicating directly to Open Content. And that will mean that we are adding more logic, more functions to that API. That simply makes it easier for the developers. And that one is that parts of it is in production. So when you say, wow, I would like to use Naviga Photos, we will actually connect your existing content repository, your open content, to the content creation API. And after that, it will just work. So it's an important part of our content universe. And you know, when you, for example, when you upload large images, we have built in a lot of support for resuming uploads there, that if your internet connection gets lost or whatever. So more parts of it will be set in production during this year, and we will move all our applications to use it. And we really, in the longer term, recommend you to do exactly the same. So it will be a more convenient way for you to ingest content. We're building another API, and that is for presentation purposes. Now, when we have been a global company, we really need to make sure that our backend solutions are really scalable compared to Nordic media houses that are really large. But in a global perspective, there are even larger media houses. So to be able to fulfill the requirements of a really large amount of users, readers accessing the content, we are developing the DAPI API. It stands for Distribution API. And it also adds a lot on comfort for you as a developer, if you are developing a presentation part, or for ourselves when we are developing apps or websites. DAPI will pre-build lists of content that you need to access. For example, without any effort, DAPI will create a list of every concept you have in your system. When you have an article that is tagged with the corona, for example, you will automatically have a list of corona articles, or sports articles, or articles written by Peter Sigfridsson or whatever. So over time, we will move our presentation solutions to use DAPI as the backend API. And the reason for that is really that it's more fail-safe and it's super scalable. We are also introducing the new Naviga JSON content document format that is more not so bloated as that existing NewsML format. So, and it's more easy to consume as a web presentation layer. the JSON format is really more adopted for modern web browser technologies and JavaScript. The status is it's under development. We have a proof of concept up and running. So if you are super interested in testing it, it's actually possible to do that in a stage environment. And we, as in Naviga and our different presentation layers, will over time move to this new one. In addition to both content creation and the DAPI API, we will introduce a new search API to make it possible to search for everything and everything without configuration. Today, you know, we are spending a lot of time. I can see Peter Sigfusson sometimes inside our office spending time with configuration, with open content, and we're really trying to move away from that. So our goal regarding the next generation open content is to have a zero configuration system. So everything we add to a document, like a planning item, an article, a headline, a publication date, or whatever, will be automatically searchable in the system. And that one is planned for this year. I don't think it will be released this year, but we will be a good way on the development. Just to give you an image of that is, you see the right, the dashboard, other clients, and that could be you as a customer that are creating clients. So if you're moving or starting to use Content Creation API, you have access to more high-level functions as well, compared to today when you communicate with open content. You really need to understand everything about our document universe, and that will be managed by CCA. And the same will be true on the presentation side, the green part. Your presentation layers, if you're building your own apps or websites or need content in some way for presentation purposes, you can use the DAPI API. That is a lot more simplified compared to do exactly the same directly with open content. That's it. Time is 1 minute left for questions.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Well, right. Thank you, team. This was really gave a lot of insights, and thank you everyone that took the time to join. So thank you. Have a good day. See you soon.